I saw 221 films in 2024. It's easily the best of the decade. I don't believe in the notion that there ever is a bad or disappointing year in film, even in 2020 or 2021, with the majority of bigger Hollywood studio films not being released. Some of the best independent films of the decade had their opportunity to shine. It feels like now, looking at 2024, there's an expansion of that, and it feels like some of the things holding back the industry because of COVID and the strikes aren't happening as much this year. So many standouts of so many genres, so many queer films that will enter the canon and be remembered for generations, horror films for the freaks and weirdos that were loved and embraced by the public, a large number of first-time or early filmmakers being recognized as some of the best of this year, and animated films that would typically float under the radar, breaking box office records. It is a miracle of a year that I believe that we'll never see again, but hopefully this is some kind of indication of a new norm. If you've seen the title of this video, you know that I'm highlighting my top 20, but I'm also doing things a little bit differently because my followers on Instagram, many of them wanted me to highlight some lesser known titles this year, so I'll actually be going through my top 50 through 21 in very rapid fire succession. With those titles and those movies, I'll simply be sharing the name, the director, so that way you can find out who made the movie, and that way you can actually make sure you're looking at the right movie. So if I don't know, there was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in my top 50, you wouldn't find another Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And if you want more of my specific opinions about those movies, I've done movie reviews for literally every single movie that I've watched this year, except minus like 6 or 7, so you probably can see my opinions about those movies on my Letterboxd account. I also want to make this abundantly clear, I love every single movie on this list. There's some movies that I love that didn't even make my top 50, and that speaks to the quality of the films that were being released in 2024. This was an amazing year for film. I don't want you to look at the number placement of where I put a movie and say, oh, James didn't really love this movie. No, I loved every single movie on this list. Sure, I have some critiques for some of them, but again, I love all of them and would own all of them and see all of them again and recommend them to anybody. In terms of some movies you will not see because of the timing of when this list has been made and because of distribution, I have not seen The Brutalist. I have a ticket to see it in 70mm next week, and I'm very excited. I have not seen Hard Truths. I have not seen The Room Next Door. I did not squeeze in Do Not Expect Much from the End of the World. I've seen that on a lot of people's end of year lists. I don't know much about that movie, but I do know that I'll probably love it when I do see it. I still need to sit down and see Andrea Arnold's Bird, and I think it would have made the list, but The Seed of the Sacred Fig. But I could go all day naming movies I didn't see that I could put on this list, so let's get to it. Let me talk about my top 50 through 21 very quickly, and again, if you do enjoy this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and also make sure that you hit that bell, that way you can see all my videos as they're being released. I'm trying to release videos every 2 weeks. There'll be another video next week though. I'd love to know down below, what did you think of the list? What was your favorite movie this year? Did anything shock you about the list? And did you learn of any new movies that you want to check out because of the list? Also, if you want to know more about my opinions about movies, please follow me on TikTok, on Letterboxd, on Instagram, and also on Blue Sky. Without further ado, here's my top 50 through 21. At number 50, we have Messy, which I will share some details about. This is a sex comedy in the vein of what you might see from Woody Allen in the past, but not with any of the problematic nature of Woody Allen making your movie. This simply follows a woman in New York City navigating her relationships. I saw the world premiere of this in Baltimore, and John Waters actually named it one of his top 10 films of this year. I believe it's still looking for distribution, so that's why I wanted to highlight it. At number 49, we have Christmas Eve and Miller's Point. At number 48, we have The Beast. I know. I'm so sorry for anyone who's seen this movie and is shocked it's not in my top 20. I did really love the movie, but I do have to be honest to myself. At 47 is Queendom. At 46 is Girls Will Be Girls. At 45 is Monkey Man. At 44 is Yinta. At 43 is Problemista. At 42 is Thelma. At 41 is National Anthem. At 40 is The Wild Robot. At 39 is Black Box Diaries. At 38 is The First Omen. At 37 is Secret Mall Apartment. At 36 is Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds. At 35 is Robot Dreams. At 34 is This Closeness. At 33 is His Three Daughters. At 32 is All Shall Be Well. At 31 is Sing Sing. At 30 is Crossing. At 29 is Ghost Light. At 28 is Evil Does Not Exist. At 27 is Furiosa. At 26 is Love Lies Bleeding. At 25 is All We Imagine as Light. At 24 is Daughters. At 23 is Janet Planet. At 22 is Look Back. And at 21 is Rap World. And again, if you do want to know anything more about these movies, please Google them, please research them, please go on Letterboxd. There's so much to love about all these movies, I just can't talk about them all. And for now, let's talk about my top 20. At number 20 is Exuma. This is a Korean horror film that follows a team of paranormal experts attempting to understand the supernatural events involving one family and one of their ancestral grave sites. When interacting with this grave, a horrible curse is unleashed upon the world. Now, I've been following Exuma for most of this year. I was familiar with it during its theatrical run. I knew it was available on Shudder, but I heard there was some kind of news of a 4K release. I actually didn't see it until a couple of days before New Year's Eve, and I was so glad that I finally did, but I was not expecting this film to crack my top 20. Within moments of starting the film, my spouse and I were locked into one of the most gripping intense features that we've seen this entire year. I'm a big fan of supernatural films that are not afraid to dive in the occult while maintaining a grounded feeling, because it makes everything that you see in front of you feel all the more real. I also love how this film was able to tie in commentary about Japanese imperialism and their relationship with Korea, and the decision to make all these supernatural beings that we see on screen appear just to be outside of focus or be visible in mirrors and reflections gave this film a unique, eerie feeling that may deserve a spot in my top 20. At 19 is The People's Joker, a parody film featuring DC Comics' The Joker and a coming-of-age comedy about understanding your gender identity, starring by, directed by, and co-written by the incomparable Vera Drew. The film is the first of a few on my list this year that were technically released in 2022, but they've been stuck in distribution limbo until 2024. Clearly low budget but making the most of her creativity, Vera Drew has crafted a world that uses its mixed media format to its highest advantage, being a film that I know for some that will be off-putting due to its unusual presentation, including the excessive use of green screen, computer animated images that have a unique artistic flair, and others literally being zoomed in because this film was made during COVID and put inside the film. But for me and many, this all works and makes a film that's equal parts hilarious and heartfelt. Considering the fact that this film was supposed to premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2022, and I've been eagerly anticipating it since then, even before learning that it was going to be pulled from said festival due to a cease and desist from Warner Brothers. This has lived up to my exceedingly high expectations. I'm in awe that this exists, and I love it. At 18 is Cloud. Directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, best known for directing Japanese horror classics Cure and Pulse, Cloud is not yet available for distribution. That has made me so sad because of how divisive the film has been, even amongst the biggest fans of Kurosawa. The film follows a man who works as a reseller online, often taking advantage of others by price gouging, earning a lot of animosity online, and the film then asks one of the most thought-provoking questions in the digital age we live in now. Does violence still exist even if we don't see its after effects? It is a challenging question that presents itself in an even more challenging way through a methodical slow burn, several genre shifts that have made some of my favorite critics question the overall genre of the film, a sequence near the end of the film that is one of the most frightening in terms of how it examines that violence, and an ending that left me on nearly the verge of tears, asking the question, can those under capitalism with capital truly experience harm? Cloud is horrifying and was a reminder that Kiyoshi Kurosawa is one of our greatest working directors, and I hope to watch all of his films for the first time in 2025. At 17 is Dune Part 2, and honestly, what more can be said about one of the greatest science fiction blockbusters ever made? Its placement here isn't to reduce its importance or deny its overall impact on myself. This is just simply a list of my favorites of this year, and placing it any higher would be disingenuous to myself. But what I do want to say about this film is that it feels like the perfect expansion of all the core ideas and themes and characters presented in Part 1 that made many people wonder, seeing that film, is that it? And then seeing this film and saying, oh. Austin Butler, I can say after being the biggest Elvis hater, you finally won me over. Overall, an incredible film that says so much about blind faith and wielding unchecked power, and this should be remembered for generations as one of the greatest cautionary tales presented in modern cinema. At number 16 is Didi, a coming-of-age film that feels somewhat autobiographical to director, producer, and writer Sean Wong's life following Chris, a stand-in for Wong, growing up as a 13-year-old Taiwanese-American boy in San Francisco during 2008, trying to learn how to skate, how to flirt with girls, finding his place in the world, and learning how to have a relationship with his mom. And as a 13-year-old Asian child growing up literally during the same summer of 2008, no other film has spoken to me about the Asian-American experience in the same way. Being a 13-year-old is hard, it is cringy, it is upsetting. You want to make all these friends and be liked by all these people and buy into everything you're told while still trying to figure out who you are, and you don't have any of the words to express any of it. Didi made me look at this time in my life with a lot more patience and understanding than normal, and I am forever grateful for that. At number 15 is No Other Land. This is a documentary that details the occupation of Palestinian land from 2019 to October 2023, when filming stopped due to the events of October 7th. And it is all done from the perspective of a Palestinian activist and an Israeli journalist. Now, there is no normal way for me to do a review of this documentary. It's easily one of the most important I've seen detailing the evils of Zionism, and while I'm not ignorant to the events of an ongoing genocide because 1, I'm well aware of the injustices being done to Palestinian people, and 2, my mother's family is made up of Cambodian refugees who survived the Cambodian genocide, and this documentary broke me. The violence captured here in the documentary's framing is some of the most upsetting I've ever seen, and to have this documentary be so celebrated throughout its festival run, to have it become shortlisted for the best documentary list at the Oscars despite not being the Palestinian submission for international film, speaks to not only the power of this film, but the cowardice that it does not have distribution in the United States where it has distribution in other parts of the world. Devastating, most important, and highest ranking documentary on this list, and for the love of God, someone released this. At 14 is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. This is not a cash grab, this is not a redundant legacy sequel, and thank God it is stronger than some of the most recent output we've gotten from Aardman Studios. In this, we follow Wallace as he's become more obsessed with his inventions, causing concern from Gromit, and a villain from their past, master criminal Feather McGraws, decide that he wants revenge. A number of my followers on TikTok from the UK seem to be surprised that this franchise has a fan base in the United States, or that's received as fondly as it is, and I just want to reiterate that is the case. Ridiculously charming, hilarious at every moment, Ben Whitehead, who has taken over the role as Wallace, is amazing, and I think people have focused on this being a sharp film that is anti-AI, which is true, but also this film is also about what it means to engage with the people around you and their humanity, and I love that. At 13 is How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. This is a Thai film where we follow M, a recent college dropout strapped for cash and trying to catch a break, who suddenly has the opportunity to care for his terminally ill grandma, wants to throw his name in the hat for that inheritance money, and has a change of heart. Now, it's made me so sad how this film has gotten no love. I followed it all year for it to get a terrible theatrical run where I had to have driven 2 hours to go see this despite living in Baltimore, Maryland, but now you can rent the movie. Oftentimes I hear this cliched set of phrases where people will say, oh, this movie makes you want to call your dad or your dog or your grandma or your second grade teacher, but no, this movie will really make you want to call your grandma. The closeness fostered here is so tender and warm, and it felt so intrusive to be able to witness this. It's an ultimately heartbreaking film that secret meaning in its title made me burst into tears. At 12 is Hundreds of Beavers. This indie comedy darling plays in the sandbox of homage to classic black and white slapstick that you might expect with the Three Stooges or classic cartoons from Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry, where we follow a drunken Applejack salesman who loses his orchard and seeks out revenge against hundreds of beavers. Now, this movie is outrageously funny. I saw it in a sold-out theater with maybe 300 people and sound like there was screaming going on considering how loud some of the laughs were, including my own. And the film constantly delivers. I hate the metrics of laughs per minute, but there were so many jokes right after one another that this feels much more than a homage. It stands among the best films that inspired it. And also, the film is just so inventive in its approach, and it likely has my favorite title card this entire year. At 11 is Memoir of a Snail, a stop-motion animated film from Australia where we follow Sarah Snook as Grace, who's separated from her brother after the passing of their parents, and they communicate their hardships over letters. Reflecting back at its audience nearly every aspect of the human experience, making me cackle laughing one moment before weeping at this beautiful story, Memoir of a Snail is about the prisons we craft for ourselves, not denying that the world is a hard place, but sometimes we are our own worst enemies, and we can seek out the joy we sometimes deny ourselves because we deserve it. Top 10 time, baby. That means we're at the Red Rooms, or possibly the most evil film this entire year and easily the most underrated horror film. The film follows the trial of a high-profile serial killer who's being watched during his court case by an obsessed fan named Kelly Ann as we witness the depths and extremes of this obsession. The overconsumption and commercialization of true crime is an evil in every sense of the word, finding ways to profit off the misfortunes and harm that have happened to real people, and Red Rooms takes its ugly, fogged, and cracked mirror up to the audience, making them confront how much like Kelly Ann we can be. There is anything but an innocuous nature framing the film from the jump, and the depths of which this character is willing to go leaves an impression you can't shake and left me profoundly disturbed. A different horror film than what people might be expecting, but the one we deserve. At number 9 is Nosferatu. As an update to one of the most foundational films of the horror genre and attempting to balance the needs of many fans and their expectations shaped because of the number of adaptations of the original Dracula novel, Nosferatu feels far greater than it has any right to be. Robert Eggers approaches his films by grounding his world and then adding supernatural elements, or in this case Orlok, and making one of the most infamous vampires in all of cinema appear at his most disturbing. He also elevates Ellen to such a significant figure in the story as a woman navigating her past trauma and trying to find agency in a world shaming her for being distraught really leaves an impression, especially when Lily Rose Depp gives one of the best performances in horror in the last 2 decades. The people are demanding auteur-crafted movies, and Nosferatu is an example of this. At number 8 is The Substance, one of the most iconic body horror films in years, and one shockingly that has been received so well under multiple metrics, but putting that to the side for a second, this story examining what it means to be a woman under the public eye and having your every move examined provides some of the best social commentary I'd seen in horror this entire year. It's smart, it's flashy, it plays with our conceptions of what is the male gaze and what does it mean to exist in spite of it, and what does it mean for us to still want that validation or the fame associated with it for whatever reason. The best example this year of simple storytelling being effective storytelling and never losing sight of its meaning. The film is not afraid to be disgusting and grotesque task, as its body horror, no pun intended, provides substance and shock value, and this dichotomy between Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley has made for one of the most dynamic duos in a film this entire year. And when I saw this in the movie theater, someone almost threw up at my screening, and that was important to my experience. At number 7 is Perfect Days. Like how there are a couple of 2022 titles on this list, there are 2 2023 titles that did not get a theatrical release in my area until spring of this year, despite being part of the previous Oscar season. In the film, we follow Hirayama, a toilet cleaner living a simple life with a standard routine as he reflects on his everyday and the state of the world. Koji Yakusho is one of the greatest living actors we have, and the summary I gave downplays this film's ability to not overlook your hardships or want meaningful change in your life. Not everyone wants to find peace as a toilet cleaner, but Hirayama does this, and his journey and reflection will make you realize how important it is to live for you and find joy, whimsy, and bliss in the tiny moments. A restorative film at every angle, please see this. At number 6 is Challengers. Love triangles in media never are really love triangles. It's typically two people pining for another without any overlap, and thank God Challengers knows how to make a love triangle be a love triangle. Maintaining this chaotic and frantic energy its entire runtime, and having the smart editing choice structuring the film to make it feel like characters are constantly in verbal tennis matches with one another, volleying whatever ammunition or backhanded compliment or passive-aggressive comments they have to get under the skin of whoever's in their way. The Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor score is godly, one of the best of this year, and all these elements emphasize a comment made by Zendaya's Tashi early in the film. And that's what she names that everything is tennis, and truly in Challengers, everything is tennis. Luca Guadagnino is also just one of our greatest active and working directors. I've seen some say he's our most proficient journeyman director, and I disagree. This is an auteur who can be given any idea and transform it into his own, using his own cinematic language, and that is a gift. At number 5 is Anora. As a longtime Sean Baker fan, I feel vindicated watching the love he's gotten approaching the award season, and as a longtime Mikey Madison fan since Better Things, I feel the same. Shockingly more funny than I believed going in, and also a lot more charming than I was expecting, with Anora being a rom-com following a young woman who has the opportunity to run away with the rich son of a Russian oligarch, and who doesn't want that? We see a lot of characters in Anora who typically don't make up the characters that we see in our everyday rom-com, and forgive me for speaking in code, I really don't know what I can say on this website yet. There's such humanism in every single aspect of the script and movie, and I feel like that speaks to everything I love about Sean Baker. I really don't want to spoil the film much more than that, but I did love Anora, and let's hope our Palm winner does well the rest of the award season. And number 4 is La Chimera. This is the Josh O'Connor film I selfishly wish more people were talking about this year, and also is a 2023 film that was in awards contention last year. This follows an archaeologist who meets a group of grave robbers / treasure hunters as he's trying to process his own grief. Never sitting completely in its own genre, the film has moments of light comedy, it has thrilling adventure, it dives into one of the most unique modern takes of magical realism I wasn't expecting. It's also a poignant look at the grief had when losing a loved one and knowing your world has shifted in a way that can't be repaired. Josh O'Connor is a lost and wandering soul, demanding your full attention whenever he's on camera, first coming across as abrasive and harsh until you understand who he is. And this is not me denouncing or minimizing other aspects of the film. Elise Rohracher made a phenomenal script and also provided amazing direction, but Josh O'Connor's singular journey brought me to one of the most moving endings of the year, and no other description or any means of describing the movie would be sufficient. This is a miracle of a movie in every way. And number 3 is Longlegs. I can already tell for some this will be the most shocking placement on this list, but the supernatural procedural kept me invested the second I was introduced to the viral marketing, and for me, Longlegs will stand the test of time as an institution in my household. A film about the evils of our everyday, surrounding us in this quiet Americana, preying on the fears of the dissolution of the American family, and resting on this idea that the worst horror lies within our own home. There are a lot of reads into what exactly is happening in Longlegs, and I do want to make some space for that in the future on the channel, but as someone nearly numb to a lot of the scenes in horror, despite being my favorite genre, Longlegs kept me on edge opening night in the theater and continued to do so the other 2 times I saw the film at the movies, and then again rewatching the 4K a few days ago, wondering if this placement was right. And not to plug my own page, but if you do want to hear more of my thoughts about the film, you will be getting that video in the near future. At 2 is Queer. The second appearance of a Luca Guadagnino film on this list, I was enchanted by this relationship between Lee and Eugene, as Lee is endlessly pursuing a man that feels like staring into a younger version of himself, yet he is met with all these mixed messages and finds himself unable to shake off this deep infatuation, or is it something deeper? By far the most challenging of Luca's work, I found myself unable to engage in this film's wavelength for about the first 25 to 30 minutes until the movie clicked for me and the distance surrounding Lee became a lot more understanding for me and a lot more human. The words "I'm not queer, I'm disembodied" have haunted me, and I was intoxicated by the dreamy gaze that floats over the entire film. Despite the film revolving so much about distance, including the distance we feel from Lee himself, there is a sensuality present and makes the longing all the more intense. In Daniel Craig's Actors on Actors appearance with Josh O'Connor, he described queer as being about unsynchronized love and not unrequited love, and I have to agree. There is so much room for tenderness between these two, and also so much fear, as these men can never be on the same page. This is a masterpiece front to back. Queer changed my life, and I think the reasons I love Queer so much are so similar to the reasons I love my #1 movie this year. And at #1, we have I Saw the TV Glow. I mean, is anyone who really knows me shocked at all by any of this? I mean, if you just look at my Letterboxd, you can see it was my most watched film of 2024, watching the film 5 times total. It completely derailed my initial plans for a YouTube page where my first video was actually going to be about Anatomy of a Fall, and this was expedited to my first video here, and I'm so glad I went in that direction. Jane Schoenbrun cast a spell on me when they released We're All Going to the World's Fair several years ago, placing us inside the liminal space similar to what I would have experienced scrolling online, interacting with strangers, rapidly consuming creepypasta, and leaving me with a sinking feeling that would not be replicated until Schoenbrun brought us back to this liminal space when exploring gender dysphoria and what it means for someone to recognize the life they're living is not their own. Instead of taking the one opportunity they have to take that leap, they push it away and are trapped in their personal hell. And even if you aren't a trans person, there's a lot to relate here in this pursuit of living your most authentic and happy life and challenging these moments where you might find yourself in regret. There is room for the joy that Owen, Justice Smith's character, experiences with Maddie, Bridget Lundy Page's character, before that's ripped away, and in sitting in the film, it made me stare into my worst fears about living a life that I regretted, and it shook me to my core. None of this has even touched on the unique visual language or structuring of the film, really proving that 2 films in, no one else or will ever do it like Jane Schoenbrun, as they feel so confident in their own craft, and that's evident by so many people and how they speak about this film. Justice Smith and Bridget Lundy Page also have a monologue each, which are among the most effective that I've ever experienced, and cemented them as giving 2 of my favorite performances of all time. Some of us need our own The Pink Opaque, and we want to be beautiful or strong or brave, and we never feel like we can take that plunge, and I Saw the TV Glow is the most important reminder that we need to make that choice because we need to be living our best life, otherwise we'll live in fear. And that was my best of list for 2024. I hope none of you are too mad at the choices I made. I'm sure if you see me on other places on the internet, this list wasn't really all that shocking. Honestly, making this list, I was expecting Dune to be much, much higher. That's why you see it in the thumbnail here, but still I had to be true to who I was and put it a little bit lower than I was expecting. If you're all curious about how I ranked other films from 2024, I do have a Letterboxd list. I will be unpriving it in a couple of days. Just give me a couple of seconds so that way this video can marinate. As for what's next, I have named that there's a Godzilla video coming next week, fingers crossed, but I do want to give some hints about what's coming after that. You are all getting something German, then you are all getting something indie, then you're getting something long, then you're getting something involving sequels, yes plural, and then you're getting something that's very super. I know that's very vague and cryptic, so please do like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell if you do want to follow along, especially if you enjoyed this ranking or my insights or my thoughts and opinions, and please do all take care.